Ghost Tactical Production Studio, welcome to Tactical Tuesday, streaming live on YouTube and simulcasting as always on GunChannels.com. To check out our entire lineup of videos, podcasts, and live shows, please visit our website, www.ghosttacticalproductions.com. What is going on, my Ghost Squad? Welcome to Tactical Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, March 26th, 2019. For those of you that are out there that are watching us live on YouTube, welcome to the channel. Welcome to Tactical Tuesday. For those of you that are watching or listening in replay, thanks for watching. I hope you guys are enjoying the content. Please leave a comment, suggestions, and all that. Once again, we are live on YouTube and simulcasting. It's always over on GunChannels.com. And if you're not familiar with GunChannels, then, I mean, you know, what are we going to do at this point? We're going to have to take you out back and wear you out. But here is a link in a chat for you guys to come check us out. GunChannels is started by G-Webs and some people going on 6 years ago. And it's a great community for pro-gun, Second Amendment activists and advocates, and just gun people in general to have great conversations, ask questions, share content, and be part of a conversation. And that's a wonderful community. So thanks for G and all of that. And come join us over there. We really enjoy it. Speaking of GunChannels, let's go over there and say hey real quick to everybody out there. It's got DT Pfeiffer's over there, Ohio 45 ACP, Pete's over there, Gizzard Gary. Gizzard is everywhere, man. Gary's just everywhere. It's pretty awesome to see that. Over on the YouTube link, let's go ahead and say hello to people. We've got Gun Loving Grandpa Stanley, Stealth Hunter, Fully Loaded Clip, Jen Davis, Guitar Man Pete, Gizzard Gary's, man, I think he's everywhere. He's just everywhere. Let's see there. Gun Snobs out there. Who else is out there? 2 Live Moo, Calaveras 32 Specials out there. So guys, if you're out there and we miss you, Stinker, aka Allen's out there, M-W Tactical's out there. I like Stinker, that's a good name. Dr. Recoil's out there. So guys, welcome to the show. And if I miss you, I apologize. It doesn't mean that I was trying to, but we are we're gonna have a pretty cool show tonight. We've got some topics we're gonna talk about. Obviously, today is the beginning of the bump stock ban. You had earlier today, I streamed, but there was a hearing, a Senate hearing in the Senate Judiciary Committee on red flag laws that a lot of us watched and had some interesting discussions in the chat with that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what's the next step. What can we do? There are obviously some things happening in this country that are anti-gun, and what are some options that we can do? And I think that we've had some pretty cool suggestions, but I think that there's a time and a place to really sit there and say, you know what, I'm tired of being a punching bag, and we're going to go out for the knockout punch ourselves. So before we get going, let's go ahead and say hello to our esteemed panel from South Carolina. We've got Magic Mike himself, Michael Woodland from M-W Tactical. What's up, Mike? Not too much. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this for somebody in the chat. I'm just going to say, what's up to Local 223? Since you said say your name, I'm going to say your name since Ghost didn't want to say it. I didn't see Local 223. So what's up, Clay?
Yeah, so, once again, you know, like how I do it. I got this new shirt that I think is pretty awesome.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Had a great weekend. Looking forward to this week because I'm going to the South Carolina State match. Shooting that this Friday, I think it is. So that's gonna be pretty interesting. And then after that,
is that a 1 day or 2 day shoot?
It's a 1 day shoot, but it's 10 stages altogether, but I'm actually working the event. So I'll be working every day.
Oh, so you're actually going to be an SO, or are you going to
RO? Yeah, RO.
No, you're not be a safety officer. You're going to be a range officer for it.
Correct.
Nice. So you're going to be a rule. You're going to be banning people and all that stuff.
Well, you know, I'm going to try to, you know, I'm going to try to make some things happen.
I hear you. Yeah. All right. And from Arizona, we got the Godfather himself. What's up, G?
Hey, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, how did your workshop go? Sorry I missed it. I was finishing up some stuff at work and all that. I tried to listen, but it sounds like you and Tony had a good conversation.
Yeah, Tony jumped in for a bit, and then a bunch of people jumped in at the very end there. Oh, yeah, we had a pretty decent chat.
Awesome.
So, question. Well, I'll let you get to Clover, and then I got a question
Go ahead.
about. So, if a bump stock is a machine gun, and you're a felon for owning a bump stock today, then there was some memes going around. What's the difference between drilling a third hole? Like, what do they wish to accomplish by turning people into federal felons with the stroke of a pen?
That's a really good question. And we'll come back to that here in just a minute. But that's a really good question. So start pondering on that, people. Start pondering. From Texas, we've got the tactical virus himself. I mean, the tactical leprechaun himself. What's up, Clover?
I haven't pondered since 1997. So
I'm not smart enough to ponder, honestly.
Yeah.
How you doing? You doing all right?
I've contemplated plenty, but I haven't.
Yeah, contemplating's good. Did you hurt yourself? I hope not.
No. I wear a padded suit when I do that.
Oh, okay.
It really helps.
I live in a padded house, so that's doctor's orders.
Yeah, sharp corners are a no for sure.
Oh yeah, sharp corners are tough, man. They're tough. I've got rubber on corners of every counter and all that, just in case. I wore a helmet on the school bus, so that gives you any idea.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. So let's kind of dig into the bump stock real quick. And as we all know that today, the bump stock ban on the ATF took place. It basically says that if you're caught having a bump stock, it could be up to 10 years in prison. I want to say like $250,000 in fines for each offense. So if you've got 3 of them, then you could be looking at 30 years in prison and $750,000 fines for a bump stock, which is hilarious to me to begin with, but it is what it is. They did try to appeal it, and Chief Justice Roberts declined the appeal, but then there was a separate appeal for a stay on it. And last I checked, and I haven't checked in the last 30 minutes, but as of 30 minutes ago, Justice Sotomayor has not made a decision on the stay. So effectively, the bump stock ban is in effect. We can say what we want to about bump stocks, and I've said plenty of them, but I think that we can all agree that even if we don't want them, we sure as hell probably don't need anyone telling us that we can't have one. So I think we can all agree on that. But have you guys heard any latest updates on any of these appeals at the state level or the national level?
Not from my end. I've been out all day, so I just got caught up from the conversation you and I had.
Yeah. We're going to get back to you in a second because you've got a crazy senator that lives in your state that we're going to bring up here in a second. Yeah, the bump stock ban, it is what it is. And obviously this came from the October 2017 Vegas massacre that this crazy evil person decided to allegedly shoot into a crowd using bump stocks. Once again, we can argue the fact that there has never been one piece of evidence on any level that said that bump stocks were actually used. Yes, there might have been weapons in that hotel room that have bump stocks, but nothing has ever been able to be proven legally that bump stocks were used. This was a response to public outpour as to why these crazy mechanisms that make machine guns for mass murders should be legal, and anyone inside the community that's ever even been around a bump stock just laughs at that. But that being said, it has happened. Something that I never thought, and I've been on record saying that I never thought that the ATF would do it. I never thought that Trump would actually do it, and boy was I wrong. So I'll take that hit. I'll admit when I'm wrong. And not only did Trump do it, it's effective today. So I know that we were talking a little bit before about why people, and G brought it up, why does the government feel like instantly making their own citizens felons and criminals? I don't know. G, do you want to jump into that before we move on about why the government wants to do this to its own populace?
No, I don't know. I mean, why is because they want to, move the line or the window or whatever it's called, so that they keep making guns more and more dangerous. This cements the concept that something about a gun can make it more dangerous, or that something about a piece of plastic is less acceptable for us, or we're less responsible because of that. And it cements the NFA stuff. But I'm just, that concept of because literally today, if you own that piece of property, you're a federal felon, right? So if you still possess that, there's nothing you can do. There's no grace period. The grace period has expired. This denotes the last day of any grace period, any day that you had an amnesty for owning a piece of, now through not the Congress, but through the executive branch, a change in their decision on the executive branch, and then a change in interpretation, you're now a federal felon. So if someone was of the ilk to, you know, shake fists at the sky and the clouds or whatever, how would they decide that if they're already a federal felon for this, then what can they possibly do that's, I mean, it's equivalent to if they built a machine gun today, or if they built a suppressor, or if they shot the barrel off a shotgun. It's the equivalent. They did nothing except possess a piece of property that was legal yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I don't know what the consequences are, but the government definitely just flipped a switch, and I don't know. Do we know how many people possess them? That many people are felons.
I don't think there's any. I never heard a number. Has anybody else heard a number of what the number is out there of supposed bump stock owners are? I know there's probably been a lot of boating accidents and different things that have happened in the last few months. You know, it is what it is. I know that someone out there was saying that, pro carry.
Oh, I was muted.
Oh yeah, go ahead, G. Go ahead, Clover.
Well, I was going to answer your question on the number. Yeah, okay. that was in the report. You'd have to pull the report, and I don't remember, but it was in the hundreds of thousands, up into the hundreds of thousands. It was. I don't even remember, the 300,000 to 500,000 supposedly have been.
Okay.
Yeah, in circulation. You know, that's what they speculated or whatever in that final ruling. That was in speculation. I can't remember if it was like 300-something thousand or 500-something thousand, but it wasn't any more than 5, definitely.
It's more than I thought, honestly. I mean, be realistic. That's a lot more than I thought there would be.
Yeah. Well, and people, I'm sure, I mean, you got the different variants. So, I mean, that's not accounting for people that own more than one, I'm sure.
Yeah. Before we get going, I want to make sure that everyone realizes, if you're watching live or listening live, if you have a question, go ahead and tag one of us in the panel in the chat, and we'd love to answer your question as much as we can. If you're watching or listening in replay, use the comments below. Go ahead and send us a question, and we will love to answer those for you if we can. Pro Carry Truckers out there saying hello. He's currently in Springfield, Illinois, getting ready for iGold. And that is tomorrow, which is, in case you guys didn't know, is the Illinois State Rifle Association. I want to call it that, but it's the Gun Owner Lobby Day. I think is what it's called. The Illinois Gun Owner Lobby Day, I think is what it is.
Yep.
But that's tomorrow. So awesome that you're up there, and I hope that you guys have a good showing. And now, what was that, G, that Tony was talking about, that they were expecting 5,000, only 400 showed up? What was that he was talking about?
He had a rally in New Jersey.
In New Jersey, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And 5,000 people RSVP'd, I guess. 400 people showed up. And I guess he had said some of the scheduled speakers backed out. So they had gaps in the speaking schedule as a result, like at the last minute also. And he was discouraged, but I told him here in Arizona, we only had 350 people show up. So in New Jersey, they had more people show up, and we have no repercussions at all here. You know, if I go to a 2A rally, nobody cares. I don't have any consequences to that other than I've helped freedom a little bit. But in New Jersey, going to a 2A rally, I suppose they got to worry about their vehicles. They got to worry about their jobs. Somebody's seen it on social media. Consequence.
Yeah. No, you're right. And those are real consequences. But also, for those of you guys that missed, I want to bring this up before I forgot about it, because it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen on YouTube or on the internet, period. Is over the weekend, G was up at Big Sandy and decided to go stream live the night shoot. And several have asked him about it over the last month or so. What's it really like? I heard it's awesome. And he, thank goodness, went live and talking about one of the coolest things I've ever experienced on a video, watching for literally an hour and a half. I mean, it was a nonstop for an hour and a half, fully auto. You had, mod deuces, you had miniguns, you had just regular old machine guns, just everything you could possibly think of for a straight hour and a half with tracer rounds. They had little drones out there, little styrofoam airplanes out there. It was really honestly one of the coolest things I've ever seen on the internet. So before I forget, I want to say thank you to G, because there's a lot of people that can't get out to Arizona to see the Big Sandy shoot and all of that. Hopefully that's a bucket list thing for now, for sure. After watching that, I've got to go. But thanks for doing that, because that was just something that you can't really explain it until you see it. And yes, I haven't seen it in person, but we got an idea of what it's like. And I can only imagine the wonderful smell of gunpowder that was out there. And it was just awesome. So thanks a lot for doing that, G. That was great.
No, you're welcome. A lot of other gun channels refused to do it. They were given the opportunity, paid expenses to go there, and they chose not to. But I said, no, I'll do it for free. I don't mind.
Yeah. How many people do you know? How many people were at Big Sandy throughout the weekend?
I'll do an interview with the guys after to do an after action, because that's a good question. I don't know. I wasn't there for the whole thing. I was doing taxes and farting around, so I got up there Saturday. But I am curious. I didn't even ask when I was buying my pass and stuff, because it was still Saturday, and I figured they were still counting. A lot of people show up just for the Saturday event, night event. But yeah, we'll probably have them on again as soon as possible so that we can chat about it and get people psyched up for the October. It happens twice a year.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Man, like I said, I mean, you know, I've been around fully auto stuff, but not to that magnitude of just everywhere and just different kinds. And there was one point, it was probably an hour into it, but you were right there by one of the mod deuces, and that thing went on, like, I'm not exaggerating when I say it went on like a 3 or 4 minute dump. Like, it was a nonstop for 3 or 4, and we're sitting there just wanting to see the barrel. That this thing had to have been glowing when it got done, and there's no telling how many rounds were put out. I mean, millions, I'd have to say, you know, of rounds put out this thing. It was just crazy, but it was one of the most impressive things. So you have a chance, if you haven't seen it, go check out gun websites. I'm going to plug it, G, but go check out gun websites. And it was the night shoot. It was just unbelievable. I really thoroughly enjoyed that. It was a great way to spend an hour and a half.
Well, that was the live or whatever, and that was, you know, interrupted and streaming. So there was the drone there. That must be interesting footage. I don't know who did that, but that's probably up soon if it's not already.
I hope so.
And then I'm guessing people that took real video have better versions of it. But I don't know. Hopefully other people figure out. I think the best way to film it is to walk behind the line like I was doing, because then you get to kind of see a lot. I imagine it might be a little boring if somebody just stood in one spot for the whole hour.
Yeah. Is there like a Big Sandy? I mean, is there like an organization that's Big Sandy that people could go try to find maybe some of that, like official footage?
MGshooters.com, and then just type in hashtag Big Sandy machine gun shooter.
MG, like machine gun shooters, MG?
Yeah.
Okay.
Michael George Shooters. Yeah.
Okay.
It's an organization that bought the properties and you know, runs it. So it's just a group of people, enthusiasts.
My homeboy Rod out there with the gun cleaner said he got to stand between 2 miniguns bringing it, and it was pretty awesome. I can imagine miniguns in themselves are pretty badass, but if you got to stand between 2 of them and they're rocking and rolling, that would be kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, there was a lot of, I mean, I don't know, there are a lot of, there's the sound of a lot of miniguns and the sound of a lot of 50 cals out there. So that kind of overshadowed. There's probably hundreds of different ones. Were there any BARs? Did you see any BARs out there? I'm sure there were.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, those miniguns and the 50 cals were just basically drowning out any other noise, but it was still pretty cool because both those guns have very distinct sounds. So when you hear a minigun, you know what it is. When you hear a mod deuce, you know what it is. So it was kind of cool. I enjoyed it. All right, so moving on from the bump stock today, they had in the Senate Judiciary Committee had a hearing led by South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, Mike, and it was a hearing with a panel of people, I guess you'd say from both different sides of the argument of red flag laws. And the senators, all the senators on the committee got a chance to ask different questions. They got X amount of time, and the panelists, if you want to call them that, got to speak their minds and get asked questions, and they all come from one of the guys I actually kind of liked. He was from a mental health organization, and he was basically saying that obviously the mental health industry does not like being blamed for mass murders. He wishes that people would quit saying, you know, the mentally ill are evil and all that, because, and he's right. There are a lot of people that have mental issues that are not evil. And the community as a whole, just like the gun community gets blamed for a lot of things. He was saying that I have no problem looking into red flag laws, but we need to make sure that we're targeting ones that are actually documented, having, you know, threatened or something. Don't just say because you have a mental illness that you're going to be banned from owning and purchasing firearms. And I thought that was a really interesting, because he's right. We're not the only group that gets banned or gets blamed for bad things happening in with guns. We take the brunt of it, but the mental health side of things, it may not be pro-gun, but they're kind of maybe joining us in this fight necessarily, is because they do get blamed as a blanket. If you're mentally ill, then you shouldn't own firearms, or you shouldn't be able to purchase or possess them. And he brought up a couple interesting points, but then a few other people went off in some crazy train talk. And then you had a guy that was there talk about due process. And I thought that he needed to be the one who was more prevalent in the discussions, because the red flag laws really come down to due process. Who's to say? We can argue all day about what the criteria is to be considered ineligible to own or possess firearms because of a mental health issue. But the dark underbelly that nobody wants to talk about is, once you're deemed healthy again, how do you get them back? And no one can really answer that. So I thought that it was interesting, but I wish he would have gotten a chance to speak more. Unfortunately, they had a couple other people that wanted to listen to themselves talk and tell their intriguing stories about this, that, and the other. And they had a sheriff. This sheriff guy was, I wanted to punch this guy. I'm sorry, but so G was there watching a little bit of it, and then he and I jumped on and did a little after show kind of a thing. And G, what was, you know, you were only there watching it for a brief time, but what were your initial thoughts of the hearing?
That it was a mockery, and that they didn't get, it wasn't a back and forth at all, or at least I only saw the very end conclusions or something, because I only saw one side and no challenges to the, again, 97% of people, 80% of gun owners, and then they just fill in the blank with whatever they want to say. No challenge, and it's, I don't know how they can, anyway, so it was flabbergasting. So this was a preliminary committee meeting. It's not the full Senate or anything.
No, it was the Judiciary Committee. It was a hearing, and they masked it by saying that this was a discussion to talk about the state execution of red flag laws. That's what they masked it as. Basically, it was Lindsey Graham got together a group of people to talk about how they could get red flag laws without making it unconstitutional. That's what I got out of it.
So it's basically what they were trying to do. The way I get it, and I didn't watch it, I'm just going on the premise leading up to it. This is kind of how I understand they were selling this thing. Was that what they were doing was they're kind of trying to determine if there needs to be federal oversight, basically.
Yes.
On red flag laws, on the state laws.
Mm-hmm. And the very last closing argument, or not even argument, the statement that Lindsey Graham, who is the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, South Carolinian, basically said that he doesn't see any reason why they shouldn't move forward onto the discussions of red flag laws at the federal level. What the hell's going on in South Carolina there, Mike?
Well, I mean, you can always say South Carolina's this, South Carolina's that, but I mean, look at the other places that are worse off than South Carolina right now.
All
you gotta do is just get that guy out of the seat.
Lindsey Graham he's an interesting guy.
Yeah, but the downside to it is I honestly believe that's driven by contribution funds. Only because of, I want to say I read something a couple months ago, whereas when they started promoting the whole red flag laws, that the states get kickback from the federal government for enacting them or something to that effect. So it's like I said, a lot of these decisions are driven by money and, of course, personal interest, because those same people that are bringing the laws into effect own businesses that they're going to look out for as well.
There was no vote today. There was anything. They were not attaching anything. They weren't even going through a bill. All this was a chance for them to discuss red flag laws, and anyone that says that they weren't grandstanding is crazy. Because here's the thing that I have, and this isn't just with this hearing. It started with the universal background check hearings in the House a few weeks ago that we were watching. All of a sudden, and it's not all of a sudden, but this stat that has just so quickly come out, and there must have been an overnight study, but they keep saying that there are 90% of Americans are in favor of universal background checks and common sense gun control, to include red flag laws. I want to know where the study is. For the love of all that is holy in this world, I wish someone who is at least somewhat pro-gun, it's in that room, would stand up and say, enough is enough. You keep saying that 90% of these people, what study, what poll are you referring to? Name it, present it, at least tell the public where we can find these stats, because until that point, at this point, all it is, in my opinion, is there is a guy standing up saying 90%. Dude, Americans can't agree on 90%, except for, like G said earlier, air and water. We can't even agree which one 90% agree if fast food's good for you, or which fast food's the best. Is a hot dog a sandwich? 90% of Americans are not going to agree on anything except for America's great, freedom of speech is awesome, and it stops right there pretty much. 90% of Americans are wanting gun control, universal background checks, and red flag laws. I ask you, where is this poll? Where is this study? And why in the hell is there not anyone in that room standing up and saying, you're a liar? Until you produce this poll and make it public, you're a liar. But no, we sit back, let this happen. And like Mike was saying off air, and I'll let Mike get into it here in a second, but the more and more they say this, the uneducated are now educated with the wrong facts, quote unquote facts. And we allow it to happen. At least our representatives allow this to happen. I don't understand why someone can't just yell, even if they just yell out and being contempt. Liar. Produce the poll. Somebody needs to do this. I'm so fed up with the absolute bullshit lies and stuff just being made up on the fly, because we're not fighting back. Our politicians are not fighting back and calling them what they are, which are lies, or, just made up facts or fake news, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. And Mike, we were talking, before the show, and you had an interesting point of view on that. Do you want to bring that up?
Yeah. Actually, I got 2 point of views I can bring that up on.
Go for it.
First point is, if somebody does something with a firearm and it's negative, and we all perceive it as being negative or a criminal act, we already have laws in place. So why are we not enforcing those laws that are already in place? Right. So regardless if it's a cop or a regular civilian, if they do an illegal act with the firearm, why are we not prosecuting these people? Right. The other thing is that, okay, we can all sit right here and say, this isn't right, this isn't fair. But now let's look at all these companies that are anti-gun, or these politicians that own various companies or own high stakes in these companies that are anti-gun or want to push red flag laws. And why don't we just stop spending our money there? All right. Because like I said, a march is not going to do anything. It's going to bring awareness to it, but people will forget about that in 3 or 4 days. But if you cut off that revenue stream, now you're going to get people to really start talking.
Yep. Clover, G, either one of you have anything to bring up on the absolute bullshit that happens in these things?
It's political theater, a lot of it.
I know it is, but goodness, but we
Is it? I get that it's frustrating, but honestly, is it any different than any other hearing or any other, thing that we've ever watched on any other subject? No, not really. So, I guess my point is it's been this way for a very, very long time. And I think it would be disingenuous to say that during that very, very long time, there hasn't been people that have attempted to change it. So I think that, or at least, turn the tide and or stem the tide. And so I think as far as our approach moving forward and figuring out what we're going to do, I think that we're going to have to kind of reflect back and look back and research what has been done, and then take the aspects of things that have been done that may have been successful, and then maybe build upon that moving forward. Kind of combine the successful efforts of the past. But it's at the end of the day, it's nothing new, and it's sad that it's that way, but it's that way.
It is that way. And you were talking about the suicides and included into the gun violence stats. And it was nice to hear someone, and it was the mental health person that was there. And part of his opening statement, he brought up the fact that 2/3 of the gun violence in America are suicides. And why are we not trying to help this stat? If you're serious about preventing the gun violence and 2/3 of gun violence is suicide, why are we not putting more resources into treatment? And I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful statement.
It is, and we need to address this. You and I both have interviewed and have friends and have talked about the mental health aspect of things for a long time.
That's right.
And I've gotten some pushback on some of the stuff I've talked about and I've done. And people are right, because they'll push back and they'll go, well, it's not a mental health problem. Why are we aligning with mental health people, blah blah blah? Well, we're aligning with them because of what you mentioned earlier. Out of all violent criminal acts, people are only mentally ill in about 4% of those. Let that sink in for a minute. All violent criminal acts, doesn't matter if it's a gun or not.
That's right.
Only about 4% actually have mental issues. So we don't have a problem where there's a bunch of mentally ill people running around causing all types of violence. We don't have a problem like that. But where we do have a problem, and the elephant in the room, and what we do have to look at, is that suicide. And with 2/3, of the number that they continually beat us over the head with 2/3 of that being suicide, that's not related to the gun violence that you're talking about. That's not related in any way to any of these other incidents. It's just not. So what we have to do is we have to address that elephant in the room, and we have to figure out ways to deal with that through awareness, through outreach, through activism, and get that number down. Why? Because if they're going to continue to beat us over the head with a number that's inflated because they're using crap within that number that's irrelevant, the very least we can do is try to lower that number, overall. Right. And then you've got the nobility aspect of it, where, our fellow man deserves our compassion and help us. I mean, good Lord, look at veterans. What do we lose? 22 a day or something?
I know it's 20 something. It's around 20 to 24 every single day.
I mean, come on. These are people that put it all on the line for us and everything else, and they get thrown by the wayside and ignored while they go deeper and deeper down that dark hole that they're in. We've got to have compassion for our fellow man. And I think that in addressing the mental aspects of it, I think we can, as people, become better people. And I think that it's a 1-2 punch. It's a combination thing. Overall, we lower the number they beat us over the head with. But then in the process, we become a little more aware and a little more passionate about our fellow man.
Compassionate.
Yeah.
G, what were you going to say?
I just about punched my computer monitor when somebody was talking, right when I first started watching your feed, and the one lady goes, "Why do veterans commit suicide?"
Oh my God, I couldn't believe she said that. It's like, are you shitting me, lady? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. I don't get it. There was a statement that was made earlier in the thing, early on, about after the guy was talking about mental health, and he was saying that 2/3 of gun violence are suicides. Of that, the vast majority are because of depression. And he said very few gun violent acts are caused by schizophrenia people. You know, they're not seeing hallucinations. They're not being told by the record player to do this. It comes down to depression. And I think someone else, I can't remember which one it was one of the two ladies, said something to the effect of, although we do appreciate and are compassionate towards people that have mentally ill, we understand that not everyone is mentally ill that kills himself. Seriously? Do you think a normal thinking person decides to end their life?
Yeah.
Just the fact that they took their own life means that there was something mentally wrong with them. Let's be real about it.
No. You could be old and you could have terminal cancer. You're allowed to check out, man. And you're
Absolutely.
not crazy to want to check out.
Absolutely. I think it's a small percentage. I don't know what the percentage is. It's not a big, huge number. And in all honesty, a lot of the people that, you know, make the cognitive decision to check out, you know, and I've seen some studies on this. I don't have anything in front of me, but so I'm going to pull a political move here, unfortunately. But I have seen some numbers and stuff, and the numbers that willingly check out, they usually do that by medication or some other means other than a firearm. The conversation around firearm and suicide is, and again, elephants in the room and things we need to address and things that we need to be thinking about with this is they make a snap decision completely permanent. That firearm is the most effective way to get it done without a doubt. You know, there's no chance really of that not working.
No, come on. No way.
All right, so
I have a real conversation here because that's not true. Number one, go talk to a cop. People, you can ricochet bullets all the time. Number two, gravity, poisons, bridges, drowning. Come on.
I have to back G on this. When I was young, I knew somebody that attempted to kill themselves with a gun, and all they ended up doing was severing their optic nerve. They survived, but they were blind.
Well, I'm not saying that it doesn't have. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but it's the quickest to get it done. I mean, you there's no between the trigger pull and what have I done? It's over with. There's no pulling the trigger and you've got time to get to the hospital or something.
There is. That's the thing. No, go again. If you want to get ugly, I mean, I don't know how detailed we want to get into this, but firearms are not.
Whatever you want to. It's a great discussion.
They can, but there's a jump off a bridge into cold water or a long enough thing. You don't get to rethink that one. Now, is that 100%? Of course not. But firearms, no, I mean, I'm not a cop or nothing, but I've definitely spent enough time with cops to know that failed suicide attempts happen with everything. Nothing is 100%. People that are trying for different reasons are trying with different intent. And some people are trying to do this or that. I mean, we're talking the reason that they're going after mental health, just like you said, it's 4%, because that's the percent of the population that's probably mentally ill. It's just like anything. There's 4% of the mentally ill are playing tennis, and 4% of mentally ill are driving, and 4% of mentally ill are drinking milk right now. Like, that's just what happens when you have 4% of the population. Why are they going after it? Because it's something that you can't write down like this person is 2% mentally ill. It's a gray area. They can use emotion. And it's difficult for us to talk about it. And they get to exploit veterans and screw them. They're evil.
Before we move on real quick, I'll let you come back at that, Chloe. Before we move on, we've got Budgets in the house, host of The Right of the People on Friday nights. He's a good friend, great channel. Go check his show out. Budget, what's going on, man?
Hey, sorry I'm late. I was actually shooting a little bit of video on making a knife and kind of lost track of time. Didn't realize it was Time for your show, man. My bad.
No worries, man. No worries. I'm just glad that you made it. I'm glad you were shooting a video. Real quick before we move on, I don't want to butcher the name, but is it Shojas or Shod? It's so I'm gonna call you Shojas. Says he's a disabled veteran. I'm assuming it's a he. I might be wrong, but disabled veteran with 100% PTSD, and not once has he wanted to go kill someone or as himself. There is mentally ill and there is psychotic. There is a big difference, and that is it's a legitimate point. Mentally ill. How to put this? It's kind of those things. All psychotics are mentally ill, but not all mentally ill people are psychotic. But I think that the psychotic, evil people are the ones that are put as the poster people for the mentally ill. Like I said, the vast majority of mentally ill people are just depressed. And I live with a person that grew up with a person that is a bipolar, schizophrenic, manic depressant, and all of that. And I can tell you that every day is a different day, and I can understand that there are going to be people out there that are going to go their entire lives being mentally ill and never know it. Let's be real. There are people that will never know. They think that the things that are going on in their lives are absolutely normal, and they don't understand why everyone else doesn't see what they see because they've never been diagnosed or never gotten help to understand that they're going through something that can be treated, it can be helped. And I'm not saying that medication is the right answer, but we just can't put all of these people into a box and say, you're mentally ill. And that's what this guy was saying. Just because you're deemed mentally ill does not mean you're a threat to society. It does not mean that you are going to pose imminent danger upon another citizen. And to sit there and say that a red flag law is going to basically forego due process and infringe on your Second Amendment right because someone deems that you're mentally ill, at what point do they stop? Because like he said, just because someone is depressed or has a mental illness does not mean they're a threat to themselves or society. And the scary thing is the government is trying to blanket all of this and shove it down our throat, saying if you're considered mentally, not even deemed, but if you're considered by someone, a law enforcement or a family member, then now you are going to have to give up your right for self-protection. And that is really, really disarming because to me, like Clover was saying, we have friends, we have family members, we have people in our lives that have mental illness, but not one of them that I know, I'm not saying no one, but the very few people that are actually mentally ill in my life would not hurt a fly. Now, they might have anger issues, they might be irritable at times, but as far as causing harm on society, I don't want to see any of my friends get thrown into this blanket just because someone says they're mentally ill. These people wouldn't hurt a flea, but they're also not being given the benefit of the doubt by our own government. And that's what really pisses me off. Now, Clover, did you want to come back? I think maybe Clover was going to come back after G. Might have been Mike. I'm not sure, but whoever it was, you're more than welcome to come back in or budget whoever wants to.
Yeah. Basically what I was going to say was when you sit there and you look at everything that's been stated in regards to mental awareness, think about stress and fear. Will that be a determining factor to label somebody as being mentally incapable? Because people under stress, they feel like they have nowhere else to go. And in that split-second reaction, what if the gun is there? Or what if it's a car or a truck, whatever the case may be? What if their fear is they don't have nowhere else to go or nothing else to do? Does that make you mentally incapable? So when you read those laws that are about to take place, it's a very slippery slope, and people really need to get active because now you bump into somebody, what I'm saying, that can be looked at as an assault, that could be deprived as a mental incapacity. So it's a thin line. So when you really sit there and you think about it overall, so we got to look at what's going to enter that realm of hit that mental awareness factor.
Yeah.
Are you talking like you have a justifiable lethal use of lethal self-defense situation, and
No.
you're saying
Right.
the authorities might go, hey, this guy, was in a mental state XYZ at this point in time, and then he was in a mental state here, and therefore this wasn't justified?
No. All right. So let's look at it from this standpoint. And this is a real life situation, right? Concerning me. I'm in court, and of course, you already know I'm not going to yell or get in an argument with somebody. But if I'm talking to you just like I'm talking to you right now, and I'm making valid points, why is the other side trying to say, "Oh, I'm becoming belligerent," or "I'm becoming angry"? Now, does that make me fit that realm of being mental incapacitated off of how those words are written for this law? You see what I'm
It
saying?
could.
So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when you sit there and you look at it overall, you know what I'm saying? This is where that slippery slope is going to come into effect. And now anybody can say anything about anybody in regards to, oh, you fit that realm. This is what we're going to do. Unjust.
Yep. I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that we're even having this discussion. The fact that there are people out there that are trying to throw a blanket gun control against a group of people that are different factors, different levels. Like I said, there are people that are just fine that have been diagnosed with depression or went through something at one stage in their life. But guess what? It's on their record that they were given medication and diagnosed as a depressant. These people right here are being thrown into a blanket as the same people as the psychotic ones, the people that are having psychotic hallucinations, the people that are making the conscious decision to go and massacre people with whatever tool, car, bombs, whatever, that are terrorists that just happen to use a tool that we used to that we love, but they're being thrown in there because they really don't understand what mental health is. And I think that that's what Clover was trying to go to. And I agree 100%. We need to educate people about what mental illness is. Everyone just assumes that this mental illness means that you're crazy. And that is so farther from the truth. It's something that I'm sorry, I'm riled up. It pisses me off because I've seen what in my own personal life for the vast majority of my life, what mental illness is. I've seen it in the Marine Corps with buddies and different people in the military of what true PTSD is. I see it every day of what in my life, what mental illness is in real life. And I can't tell you how angry it makes me to say that there are people in my life that are close to me in my life that would not be able to possess or purchase firearms because they've been deemed an evil person. That's really what they're saying. If you are the least bit mental ill, we're saying that you're an evil person and we don't want you to have guns. And that's what really just drives me up a wall to think that this conversation is going on. We have to have discussions like this to defend it. That's what's the crazy is no one out there besides us seems to think that having a discussion on infringing upon a constitutional right because of what we think is a mental illness. They seem to be okay with this. And that's what scares you is and people say, what's next? That's a really good question. And I'm not one of those guys that's the sky is falling. They're coming for our guns. Everyone knows that I do believe there is some danger out there, but I'm not one of those that thinks that the sky is falling. I'm not one of those that thinks that the boogeyman is coming for our guns. But the problem is the boogeyman might not be coming for our guns, but the conversations we have to have right now, the fact that we have to have this conversation is an absolute waste of time. And it drives me nuts. I'm sorry for going off on a rant. I don't understand. I don't understand. Budget, you were missing when we were talking about bump stocks and the Senate hearing today. Are you caught up on the Senate hearing, or is there anything that you want to add? Because I haven't given you a chance to really say hello.
I didn't get an opportunity to watch the hearing. I worked last night, so I was asleep while that was going on. So I really Really haven't had a chance to catch up with that. But you know, as far as the red flag bill goes, you know, I said on my show Friday that I suspect no matter what we do, it's going to pass. You know, it has support from both houses, unfortunately. I mean, we can always expect that not both houses, but both parties. We can always expect that the Democrats are going to love something like this, but we have traitors within the Republican Party who think it's a great, wonderful idea. So they're going to go ahead and ram it through, I think. Not to say that we shouldn't do everything that we can, let them know, you know, be vocal and get our opinion heard and all that, because we absolutely should. Who knows? I might be wrong. I hope I am. But I think it's going to happen. So just kind of prepare yourself for that eventuality. And the bump stock thing, didn't they? Wasn't there an injunction granted to prevent this from going into effect?
Well, the from what I saw is that Chief Justice Roberts declined the hearing, and then there was a separate appeal on a stay. And that is on the desk of, this is as about half an hour before the show started. They hadn't updated it yet, but as of about 6:30 Central, it was on the desk of the Supreme Court on a stay, and they had not ruled yet. Now, that might have changed while the show's been going on. I have not been able to check that. So if there's anybody out there that wants to check on that, please let us know the answer to that. But I do not know.
On that.
My fault is it was the initial appeal was declined.
My opinion on the bump stock thing is that it is a gross regulatory overreach. I don't think that an unelected body and appointed bureaucracy has the authority to rewrite federal law, in effect, by changing the definition as set forth in statute. But, you know, I'm just some dude that got accused of being a glorified babysitter the other day. So what do I know?
Well done. You made the big time. Yeah. One last thing about the mental health thing, and I want to bring Clover rings. I know that he's probably got some things, but you know, we are talking about, and we can bring G in. I think he's got something that he wants to bring up as well. But you know, understanding that mental health, like I said, education, and it starts at the highest level. Understanding what mental health is and mental illness is. And someone brought up there in the chat about a mother with postpartum. You know, sometimes they're chemically imbalanced because of having a child, and they have to be put on different chemicals because they're having depression issues with having a child, and that's a real thing. You know, my biggest thing is the definitions of what they're going to use as being considered mentally ill. Are you going to be educated or not? And then 3, what is the end game? Is there a pathway written out in stone, not up for discussion? Is there a pathway to get those weapons back in a timely manner? If you have, because I think I don't think we all agree. I will say this, and I'll take some heat. I have absolutely the stance that there are times in our lives with people that we know and love that we would be, if we were honest about it, sit there and say, everyone's going to have it. Maybe, I don't know everyone, but most people are going to have a time to sit there and say, you know what? Johnny over there is going through a tough time, and I know he's got some guns at home. I'm not worried about him going on a shooting spree, but I am worried about him hurting himself. We need to do something about it. And if you don't think that situation ever comes up, then either you're living in a great place with phenomenal people in a utopia, or you're lying. But that's going to pop up. But wouldn't it be nice for us to get ahead of this and say, instead of having the government tell us how we're going to handle it, that we could do it ourselves? We could do it somehow, some way. There'd be a way, because I think we would all be willing to do whatever it takes to not have the government involved. Clover, G, you had said you had, and then we'll come back to Mike, but G, you said you have a position you wanted to bring up on something.
What you were talking about before made me think about, if we were not talking about fighting for our rights protected by the Second Amendment, but instead I don't know, some other just regular old fight. We're going to have a fight or a wrestling match with somebody, a boxing match or something.
Mm-hmm.
Would we be talking to the fighters or the people that are about to go into combat, into the competition or whatever? Would we talk about, well, we're probably not going to win this one, and we're probably not going to win, and this guy's pretty strong, and he does have good values, and he's got bigger muscles, and he's got more reach, or do you practice and you figure out where the opponent's weaknesses are, and you go fight and you figure out stuff, you learn, and you get stronger, and then if you do fail, you figure out where you failed and you work on those so you don't have that deficiency anymore, and you scope up the next opponent. You mature and learn from the other fights, and you get stronger, and you fight again. And do you quit fighting because you get bored of it? I guess it's possible. In this fight, I don't think it's a frivolous thing, but I don't think we think that the fight's going to end. Like, we're not going to push over the antis and they're finally going to go, you know what, we're pro-gun now. Let's not ever fight again. That's never going to happen, and nobody's suggesting it, right? But why are we looking at this like, oh, we're not going to win this one? Like, why aren't we looking at it like an opponent? Like, why aren't we fighting these people, learning, licking our wounds, and get repairing and getting stronger and fighting again?
Yeah, we're gonna bring that up because I'm getting ready to go here in a minute after I let Clover bring it up, because Clover's got something that I think people would like to hear, maybe. But we're gonna talk about maybe taking the fight to him. But Clover, what you got, buddy?
Well, I wasn't going to get into what was in the comments, but
okay. Well, you just said me, so I figured you might have something to say about it.
No, the comment was after that. But yeah, I mean, I have had to take firearms away, unbeknownst to people that own said firearms, and right. I was thanked when they were given back. I wasn't cursed or had the laws called because I stole anything or whatever. So I think if people legitimately realize that they're having issues, I think they're probably going to end up being thankful more often than not if they're stable individuals anyway. No, what I was going to say is that, you were talking about how we have to have these conversations, and I think that you guys talking about the panelist or whatever it was, and admittedly I haven't watched those hearings or whatever, but having the mental health guy that was kind of defending things a little bit. I think it's a good alliance, and the reason I think it's a good alliance is, like we mentioned before, that it's insignificant, honestly, when we talk about the number of people that commit violent crimes that are that have some type of a mental illness issue. But on the flip side of that, you're talking like 24% of victims of violent crimes have a mental health issue, right? So to stop 4%, you restrict 24% from the ability to potentially preserve their life. Right. And I think that's where you're starting to see some alliances with the mental health industry. They're starting to see that gap, not only the demonization of anybody that has any type of mental issue, but they're starting to see that gap of, we're carrying about 4%, but we don't about 24%. And that really is not consistent, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and there are people, I mean, obviously we've got good friends that are working very heavily into the mental health side of things in the gun community. But you had a great conversation with Debbie, and I've talked with Debbie a couple of times, and we've touched base. She touched base with me, and we're going to talk again next week as well about some different initiatives that we're going to try to work with her on. And you're right, the mental health side of things that really weren't privy to what the gun community was all about. The fact that Debbie came to SHOT Show with Mike and with Sedini, and was willing to listen to stories. And I have a podcast that was out a couple weeks ago with David that had to take some guns from his dad because of a crazy fluke accident that he was hurt and injured and caused some brain damage. But the fact that these mental health professionals are willing to sit down and have a conversation and say, hey, we may not agree on the gun side of things, but we can both agree that labeling someone as a danger to society without knowing the situation is hurtful for both of our communities. And so it is nice to know that there is possibly an alliance or to help educate people, because education is really what it can come down to. And I think someone said out there earlier, if you're not educated, then you're willing to follow whatever information's out there. You're going to believe any information's out there. And for me, that's what most is frustrating to me, is the fact that there are people out there making blanket statements and throwing out absolute frivolous lies out there, and no one's saying anything about it. And we're getting ready to talk about what we can do about it here, because I think it's very, very important.
And it's a complicated situation. It really is, because you're talking about all these personal situations and stuff, right? There's really no way to generalize it. You're talking about mental conditions, so you're talking about many different types of mental conditions. You're talking about things brought on, like you're talking about with an accident. You're talking about just brain chemistry issues with genetics. You're talking about potentially drug use, all kinds of things that can bring these mental issues on. It's extremely complicated, and that's why when I talk about this stuff, that's why government doesn't have a role. It's too complicated. It needs to be handled on an individual, family, community basis. It's got to be handled that way.
Yeah. Over there on the Gun Channel side, Pete saying we got to step up our game somehow, and we're getting ready to talk about that. And actually, we're going to start talking about right now is, what's the next step? What can we do? G, and we were talking earlier, and it seems like, and G uses a great terminology he used, we seem to be a punching bag. All we do is seem to just take punch after take punch and take punches, and we seem to fight a lot of this off somehow. We come together at the 11th hour, and we seem to get enough strength to defend our rights a little bit, to where we kind of deflate these bills. We're on defensive mode at all times. And I want to use an analogy it's military, because it is what it is. But, the turning point in World War II was D-Day. Is we had a massive attack, and we took it to their shores. We took it to the beaches and said, we're going to lose some men, but we're going to win this thing right here, right now, on our terms, on your land. We're going to come right in your backyard, and we're going to shove it down your throat and say no more. And I hate to say it, but it's time, guys. And we all want to sit there and talk about, come and take it and all that. No. Hell no. It should never get to the point where it's come and take it. It should be right here, right now, saying, as a community, put egos aside, put everything aside, because right now our wall that we have built around our community is extremely fractured, and they're able to get water and get things through those cracks in that wall. We need to shore up those walls, concrete them again, make sure that all the cracks are taken care of, and say, look, enough's enough. You're not going to throw out these lies. You're not going to blanket our entire community over because a couple evil people that happen to use a tool and blame us for it. And it's one of these things I'm going to start asking you guys what we can do. But one of the things that I suggested is this. They use March for Our Lives. They got 1 million. Well, they got a couple 100,000, but they were trying to get 1 million people to Washington, D.C. for the March for Our Lives. We have 30 million gun owners in America. Surely we can get 500,000 to 1 million of them to show up on Washington, D.C. and force them to listen to what we're saying. You have 500,000 or 1 million people show up at the Lincoln Memorial around the pond, or at the Capitol building, or the Washington Monument. You're telling me that there aren't going to be any news cameras there to find out exactly what's going on? And you start getting people like the NRA and GOA, because here's the thing, you and I and all of us in this room, we can say what we want to, but until we get a senator or a congressman or a big time organization on board, it's not going to happen. We need to start pushing these organizations. Hey, let's set up a rally. I'm not talking about a state rally. Let's do a national rally, 1 million gun march, whatever you want to call it. We need to start saying, look, we're going to take the fight to them. We're going to use their strategic moves. They like to get in front of a camera. They like to make a march on Washington. They like to start putting numbers and facts out there. Then let's beat them to the punch. Instead of taking the punch, let's come with the serious roundhouse kick to the head from out of nowhere and say, we're not going to take it anymore. It's been since 2013, then the community has really kind of come together. And I'm telling you right now, I know that you are going to sit there and people already have comment NRA. Enough's enough, guys. I'm not a member of the NRA, but Jesus, enough's enough. We need everybody on board as much as we can without bickering, without egos, without saying your thing is stupid or I'm not going to do that. I don't have time. You don't have to show up, but you can help by sharing. You can help promote. You can do some artwork. You can do a lot. There's a lot of ways to get into the fight. But the fact that we're going to sit there and say, well, screw them, I hate them, but you don't do anything about it, enough's enough. Because here's the thing, 2020 is a huge election year. You have the presidential race, you have half the Senate, and you have the entire House. You don't think that if the anti-gunners win office, that they're not going to come with a complete gun control agenda? You don't think that America is going to start looking a lot like New Zealand here pretty soon? I'm not a sky is a falling guy. I'm not the boogeyman's coming guy, but it's real. And the quicker that we put a stop to it and let them know that your jobs in 2020 are on the line, maybe they'll listen. I don't know. What can we say? What do you guys have any ideas about what we can do? Mike, I know you had some stuff you were talking in pre-chat. You want to bring some of that stuff up?
Yeah, like I said, it's all about the sacrifice. The sacrifice is, are you willing to not live as comfortable as you are now for this change that possibly can happen? But until you're willing to sacrifice, change is not going to come. We can sit here all day, talk and plan, but if people are not willing to sacrifice, that change is not going to come. Part of it, what I specifically said in the pre-chat was, we got to figure out these companies that are anti-gun and stop spending our money there, right? Because once you start messing with that revenue stream, now you actually captured the attention, and now your voice is going to be heard. So let's just take Coca-Cola, for instance. And I don't know if Coca-Cola is anti-gun or not, but if you get everybody to say, okay, we're not going to buy Coca-Cola until this is resolved to a more fair treatment or the people have their rights back, however we want to define it, right? What you think Coca-Cola is going to do? All right, they're going to turn around. They're going to start talking to these congressmen and senators, and then they're going to help to try to bring change back because they're going to need that money to keep those operations and those jobs intact. So it's a snowball effect, but it's like I said, sacrifice is the big picture here.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the thing is a lot of people will sit behind cameras like us, sit behind keyboards and talk a big game. Anyone can talk a big game when they're really not held accountable. I think we need to hold ourselves accountable as a community. I think it's time that we question everyone's intentions. I think it's time to sit there and say either you're 2A or you're not. And we know people out there that are part of this community that are not 2A. They're just exploiting the community for personal gain. That's okay. We don't want you. We don't need you. But the people that truly are 2A, I really do think that it is time for us to sit there and say enough is enough. When are we going to actually fight back? We're Rocky Balboa, man. All we do is just get beaten for 10 rounds. It's the 11th round, guys, because the 12th round is 2020. It's the 11th round. We got to start fighting back right now. We got to prepare ourselves and get ready for the 2020 fight, because if we start in 2020, it's too late. And G was talking about that in the after chat, the thing also. It's really true that it's time. We can't wait to 2020 and say, oh, well, we can start here this fall and then we can really get it going in 2020. No, we can't. It's got to start now, because we got to let them know that you don't even need to run for office next year if you're going to bring gun control in, because you're going to get beat so bad, and we're going to make sure that the world knows that you're full of shit, you're lying, you're trying to blanket an entire community, an entire populace because of an agenda that you want, or you're being paid by a lobby that's wanting you to say these things, we're going to exploit you for what you are. And if you start dangling their jobs in front of them, you never know what's going to happen, because that's really what's amazing is these politicians, it's all about getting reelected. It's all it is. So you start handling their jobs. And there's another thing that Mike brought up, and I think that you start talking about being supported by companies and lobbies to these politicians. Well, find out the companies and the lobbies that donate to these politicians' campaigns that are supporting them, and quit doing business with those people. That's really what it comes down to. Quit doing business with companies that are trying to buy your rights away from you, because that's really what it comes down to, is money and power. And we're allowing these people in Washington to control us with money and power, and we're letting it happen.
Can I tell
we are 300 million people, and we're allowing 500 and 600 people in Washington control us. That's sickening to me. I'm sorry. Go ahead, G.
All right. It's a perception of what's happening, but another way to look at it is, there's a bunch of people standing around. Those are the people that are standing closest to the valves or whatever, and we told them to go check the gauges and turn the valves. So if they're supposed to be puppets, they're supposed to be representatives. If you don't say anything to them, that's like hiring an employee and not giving them a job description. So I agree with Mike 100%. That's the true power of 30 million. And we're saying 30 million. That's a low estimate, I think. So if we can get gun owners to, number one, appreciate that they're owner of property that's under threat, and then vote with their wallets. We're capitalists. We love buying and not buying based on emotion and all that. Do we have a different, at least it's a different appeal to talk to all people and say, these people are anti-liberty. Like, who cares about guns or whatever? These people want to have the executive branch of government be able to do things that it's supposed to be the checks and balances. Maybe we talk about the liberty at risk here, and these companies that are participating in the economy. I mean, I'm not going to go so far as to say it's all against us. Again, a company is a bunch of people that make a product. Somebody came up with a product, or somebody found a need somewhere. A bunch of people got together and figured out a way to supply that need or create that product. And if they're making a product and it's got a short point on it because no one thought about nothing, but it turns out that sharp point is poking everybody in the butt. If they never get feedback, it's not like they built a product to poke you in the butt. I mean, you could look at it that way, but if somebody said to them, hey, can you make this thing rounded or curved a different way? They'd probably go, oh yeah, no problem. And now it's curved a different way. They sell even more product. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that the corporations are out to get us. I don't think the system is rigged to get us. I think that there's some places in the bureaucracy where unscrupulous people can hang out, and they use the bureaucracy to hide and do sketchy stuff. So with all the transparency stuff we got, we can fight that. But I really like the idea of mobilizing people, having some lists of like, hey, here's companies that aren't pro 2A, and here's companies that are pro 2A. Exactly. It worked with Dick's, right? Dick's is going out of business, right? Companies
they were starting, as far as the gun stuff, they were starting to scale back before. But yes, it obviously was a big drop after they decided to do that. So yeah, they're scaling back their stores for sure. Absolutely.
And we're just talking, buying one. And when we say don't buy from them, I mean, if it's like something that you like the flavor of this one or that one, then buy that flavor. But then when you make an impulse decision, keep in mind that they hate guns. So buy that flavor of something else you could care less about. If you like their soda, but you don't care about their chips, then buy somebody else's chips. Just knowing, the number of dollars that we spend that's why Google tracks us, and that's why Facebook tracks us. That's why these people want to be in positions of control, is because we spend so much money. So we have to remember that's a tool that we have.
Yeah, bullets out there. Yeah, he says organized boycotts and supporting pro-gun retailers and manufacturers speak volumes. That's billions of dollars in revenue, jobs, and taxes that will affect anyone's bottom line. And that's exactly right. Maybe I should have said, instead of boycotting these companies, make the positive route and say support these companies. Yeah, I mean, you can look at it how you want to. I'm real big, and most people in this panel and in this chat are probably hey, buy made in the USA if at all possible. We understand the fact that there's a lot of products that aren't going to be made in the US, and it is what it is. It's also a free market and capitalism at its best. You can choose how you want to spend your money. But if you've got apples and apples, the product's about the same and the product's about the same price, and one company is outwardly anti-gun and one is pro-gun, it's not a hard decision, you know. It's not a hard decision. So budget, do you have anything you want to bring in, or maybe what are some thoughts of what you think we could do as a community?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I've heard all of these ideas put forth before. I really like the rally idea, but you know, realistically speaking, unless we have someone with a lot of reach to back it, how far is a national rally going to get?
Yep.
You know, I'm not saying, and again, I'm not saying we shouldn't try this. I'm not saying we shouldn't advocate for it. I'm not saying we shouldn't scream from the top of our lungs from every rooftop, tree, and tower that we can climb up on. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is we have to be realistic about the fact that we need to reach out to and capture other people with this who can really push that agenda forward. I think that's the difficulty we face as opposed to the antis, because the antis, you know, they have the backing of the giants. You know, they have the corporate gun control sponsors. They have the private gun control sponsors who have what is in effect unlimited money, i.e. Bloomberg. We have us. And I think that we need to be realistic about the fight we have ahead of us and, you know, tighten our belts and do what we can to get it done. You know, but we need to make sure that we're trying to focus on capturing somebody that does have that platform, that does have that reach, that does have that backing, that can get the attention, that can get people motivated to come and do this thing. Because I think worse than not having any rally at all would be to have one and a couple thousand, couple hundred people show up.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking nationally. A couple thousand at a state rally, you know, hey, that's pretty good. You know, the Ohio rally I went to last year was a couple thousand people, and that was great. Yeah. But for something to have a national impact, we need to have more than that.
Yeah, Bullets out there saying that he lives in Arizona and, you know, can't go a lot of places, and I understand that. You don't have the time or the money to go to a rally. There are so many different things that you can do to be part of this fight. Obviously, he says he contacts representatives. Well, don't just call them or email them. They have to take a meeting with their constituents. If you request a meeting, go have a face-to-face meeting. Make them look you in the eye and tell you that they're going to be anti-gun or whatever. Make them look you in the eye, because very few people are not willing or able to do that when it comes right down to it. Go request a face-to-face meeting with your representatives at the state and the federal level. Rod out there, the gun cleaners, makes a great point. He said, if you're going to have rallies, you can't have people showing up in full gear in a slung rifle. It seems this is what happens at most pro-gun rallies, and it doesn't have the cost. I would sit there and agree with you that I live in a state of Arkansas, okay? And so anytime that something happens in Arkansas that's on the national level, they go find the biggest toothless redneck woman that can't speak proper English, and that's who they put on the TV, because that's how they want people looking at Arkansas. The same thing goes for gun people. If there's a rally and you see someone who's all kitted up, slinging with the 2-point sling or the 1-point sling, the AR up front, and they've got another one over their shoulder, and they've carried the flag, and, you know, don't tread on me and all that. Guess who you think's going to be on the TV? The crazy looking dude that's got the look in his eye like he's ready to go, you know, postal at any given time. Not saying that you should wear a suit and tie or button down and all that, But if you don't get kitted up and sling that rifle every single day of your life, then why are you wearing it to a rally? The whole point of us, what we're trying to do is to show the rest of the country that may not understand our culture that we are normal, law-abiding citizens that just happen to enjoy our Second Amendment rights. So we don't need you kitted up. We don't need you looking like a freaking operator out there in a rally. Wear what you wear on an every single day basis. If you wear tack pants in a fleece like I do during the wintertime, then wear tack pants in a fleece. But I'm not going to wear my body armor, my plate carrier, and got an AK and an AR slung over with a weapon on each hip, a gun on each hip, and my knee pads and all that, a camied up face. Come on, you're actually helping them. So yeah, I agree with you, Rod. You know, wear what you would normally wear for the love of all that's holy. Don't try to dress up and act like something you're not. We all know that if you're there in support, then we know you're pro-gun. You don't have to show us by dressing up like some dumbass operator that you probably have never left your state before to show us that you're pro-gun. Being there is enough. Telling other people, doing so. If you're good with Photoshop, make up some signs. You know, if you can't be there, go pass out flyers. There's a lot of things that you can do to help this fight without just being there or turning your cameras on. You know, I don't think that it's something that I'm not really helping the cause by having this camera on as much as I would like. I am part of the fight, but it's going to take a hell of a lot more than just a few people with cameras on. It's going to take a movement, like you said. And that's why I said, you can question me all you want. The NRA, the GOA, the Second Amendment Foundation, there are groups out there that have the clout and the reach and the power to organize something like this. Wouldn't it be nice if all the organizations could come together for one simple rally? If you got the power of the NRA, GOA, SAF, FPC, all of these people all on the same boat for one thing and say, hey, we're all going to get behind a march in Washington. Can you imagine? Now that's what I'm talking about. That would be awesome. You can go get some congressmen or senators. I would, especially with 2020 elections coming up. You're telling me that someone like Ted Cruz or some of these very pro-gun senators or representatives wouldn't want to jump on board with a pro-gun rally in Washington? Come on now. They would probably love that. So there's all sorts of different avenues we can throw down here. And I apologize to my panel. I've gone on a lot more rants tonight than I typically do. But I just have had enough, man. I've had a stressful weekend to begin with, and just listening to these jackasses, man, I tell you what, I know Clover earlier he wanted to talk about some stuff. You have something you want to bring up?
Yeah, we were talking about boycotts, and so I've got a dead serious question here. Something I've been working on for a very long time. I think I'm up to like maybe 360 or 380 companies in this country that participate, practice, have policies in some way that are anti-gun. So when people go out and they put their foot in their mouth a lot of times because they go, I don't deal with any company that's anti-gun. Well, to what extent, I guess? And that's my question. So when we're talking about what Mike says, and, you know, okay, we need to organize these boycotts and don't deal with anybody that's anti-gun, where do we draw the line as far as what's anti-gun? Because I've got a two-parter here when we talk about this. And number one is, where do you draw the line? Is it that some stores don't allow concealed carry or don't allow open carry? Or does it that they actively give to anti-gun politicians? Or where's that line that is drawn that you say, okay, now we boycott these companies? And then the other thing is, these companies, we talk often about the small percentage on the left, the small percentage on the right, and the huge swath in the middle. So we can't forget about that middle, and we have to continue to reach them and get them on board, at least being sympathetic to our fight. Because the vast majority of these companies, their revenue and their day-to-day, they can exist on that section of the population in the middle. This has been proven over and over by the left boycotting stuff, and companies are still, Chick-fil-A is still around, right? So a two-parter. Number one is, where do you draw that line? And then is it going to be at all effective if we can't pull other people from the middle into the fight.
Well, the middle is exactly where we've talked about this tirelessly for a couple years now. We're not going to change the hard anti, the 10% that are hard anti, just like they're not going to change the 10% that are hard pro gun. It's the 80% in the middle that, whether or not they're pro gun or anti gun, they're at least maybe open to the idea. And I had a guy here at work that was here the last couple of days. We had an event here for 2 or 3 days, and one of them recognized the name of the Ghost Tactical. Didn't know really that it was me, didn't know anything about it, but recognized the name and said, "Oh, hey, wait a second. So you're pro gun?" I was like, "Yeah." And I said, "Are you pro gun?" And he was like, "Well, I'm a weird one." And I said, "Okay, well, let's have a discussion." And he said, "I don't own any guns. I don't plan on owning any guns ever in my life. But I actually have no problem with the Second Amendment." He's a pure constitutionalist. He said, "Look, I have no problem with anyone owning guns that are there to protect themselves and all that. I'm all for the Second Amendment. I just choose not to have any guns." I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because he had no problem being in public saying that he may not own guns, but he has absolutely no problem with me owning guns. It's the 80% in the middle that, like you said, Clover, the 80% in the middle that are at least open to a discussion, that if we do it the right way, that could turn the tides a little bit. G, you were going to say something?
No, not really. Let's just focus it on liberty, perhaps, and then I think we've got a better chance of talking to those people in the middle, since the executive branch has been overstepping the balance of powers so significantly.
Yeah. Now, Mike, you got some lists going on here. You want to Magic Mike? We got 2 mics here, but you want to talk about what you got going on here in the inner chat?
I just went through and I found a list of anti-gun corporations and corporate heads, and it's some pretty interesting companies on this list, and these companies all donated to organizations or funded some form of gun control. So it could have been a campaign to somebody like a congressman or senator, or they actually pump money into like Mothers Against whatever that saying is they got going on. And it's like a few companies, like I said, Levi's is on there, A&M Records is on there, Hallmark Cards on there, Ben and Jerry's Homemade Incorporation, the ice cream company, Kansas City Royals, Kansas City Chiefs. So, like I said, when you sit there and you start looking at these companies, and if you stop giving them your money, and now it's going to turn around, and now these people are going to want to start, okay, why are you not giving me money? Why are you stop using my services? All right. That's where you start at. But once again, are you willing to make that sacrifice for the comfortable way that you've already geared up to what you have as known as a living, and fight for what you're really looking for? Or are you just going to sit there and just keep preaching and not do anything about it?
Well, none of the companies you mentioned affect me. I don't deal with them anyway. But the reason I brought up what I brought up, Mike, is we say let's do this, and then we don't necessarily give any direction or directions on things. And so what it sounds to me like, you're drawing the line at political or some type of contribution into an anti-gun effort, correct? Not just they have to
understand, these are the same people that are writing these laws, right? So if they're willing to do that with the laws on our Second Amendment right, what else are they going to overstep on next once they won that fight, if they won that fight?
Yeah, I just think it's clear it's important to clarify, That's all, because otherwise, if you don't, you look like a hypocrite. Right? If you go out and you say, okay, well, I don't support any company that is pumping money into anti-gun propaganda or anti-gun organizational efforts or anti-gun lobbying, right? That's a lot different than just saying, well, I don't deal with any company that's anti-gun, because then somebody that's educated like myself with nearly 400 companies is going to come along and smack you upside the head and say, yes, you do. And then you look like a fool. And the problem is we get into that trap of I mean, do you want to look like a hypocrite if somebody comes along and says that?
No, come on. Where's the rule that says you have to be all or nothing? If there's a company that's vulnerable to manipulation through public input, their service or their product is, rests on public opinion, and we've got skills and a platform and reach to influence that. We don't have to say, I'm 100% or nothing. Why can't we say, we're not going to spend money here because of this, and this is where we take a stand. And then, like Dick's, and now we can point at that and say, next company that comes along, like Levi's, do you want to be the next Dick's? Fine, and now it's Levi's. Does that mean we have to change? I mean, I just think that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. We can find the companies that are good examples and that are setting themselves up by being a bunch of jerks, and hold them to task. It's a good exercise, if nothing else, for us.
I think something that we could think about, which I think would be interesting, is, and I'm gonna take Dick's Sporting Goods as an example. Okay, if we obviously it's public knowledge, you can search it very easily and find out where Dick's Sporting Goods headquarters office is. As a collective group, if we find companies that are blatantly trying to promote anti-gun legislation through brokering or paying or whatever you want to call it to these politicians, or they're doing something publicly that says that they're anti-gun, why the hell would we not, as a group, NRA or someone, collect money, or however you want to do it, and go buy as many billboards in those headquarters towns and buy billboards and say, we're not shopping with you because you're anti-gun? So every time that one of those executives have to go to work, they're seeing 4, 5, 6, 10 billboards every day driving to work. We're not shopping with you because you're anti-gun. That's something that we could do. That's something that is actually very easy to do, is have that getting done. Buying billboards saying we're not shopping with you because this. And that's something we can do. That's very, very simple. And I guarantee they'll get the message on that. Let's see here. Budget, you got anything that you want to bring up at this point?
Nah, I think you guys pretty much have it.
It's an interesting conversation. And like I said, I apologize to everybody out there, especially my panelists. I kind of overran this thing, and I know that I have that ability. It is what it is, but I do like to have my panelists talk a bit more. But I was a little irked today, and I just really was getting hard boiled here for a while. So I appreciate you guys letting me rant a little bit. It is about the time. Let's start kind of running through the room really quick. And if you have any closing thoughts on any of the topics you want to talk about, you can. If not, go ahead and tell us what you want to plug and all that. We'll start with Mike, M-W Tactical Mike.
All right. Like I said, just go ahead and go out there, vote, register to vote, exercise your right to vote, and contact your representatives and tell them what you think. Give them a piece of your mind, and make change happen. But like I do every week, you know how we do it. Please call me at 803-250-1256 or go to www.m-wtactical.com. The one-stop shop where you can check out everything I'm a part of, and a direct link where you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram, or do a search for M-W Tactical to find me. Even a link where you can catch up on the Black Man with the Gun podcast with Ken Blanchard and myself, where you can also get your M-W Tactical and Black Man with the Gun gear also by clicking on the store tab. We're also doing the LEO training campaign that you can donate to by visiting gofundme.com/LEO training to put some officers in training for a year at no charge to them or their department. And the M-W Tactical channel, where we do various reviews or conversations that we put out every Tuesday on GunStreamer and YouTube. And we now have the M-W Tactical podcast that we release every Tuesday as well. Go to the link on the website or click on the post that will redirect you from the M-W Tactical Facebook page, or do a search on your favorite podcast platform. But most importantly, click on the Patreon link.
Awesome. And thanks for coming in, buddy. I know you've got a busy few weeks ahead of you, so I'll be interested to hear your journey the next few weeks. I know you got some really cool things coming up.
Man, that business started last week.
I know it did. So I mean, it's going to be hectic for you, but I think that some really cool content could come out of this at one point. So really looking forward to it. Budget. You have any closing comments or anything you want to bring up from the discussion? And if not, go ahead and plug away what you want to plug.
Well, I think Magic Mike already said it there. It's the same thing I end my shows with every week, is that your elected representatives and Congress critters should know your name. They should know when that email comes across their screen what you're going to say. They should know when the caller ID pops up. They should go, "Oh shit, that guy! Jeez, again."
Exactly. Yep.
Not
a bad thing.
Call them, write them, let them know whatever means that you can, and never give up this fight, because as I said a little earlier, they have the big dogs behind them and we have us. So we have to, we have to dig in and do the work. And that's that. And that's all of us. Everybody that's hearing this, that's you too, not just those of us with the platform, as small as it might be. All of us together, including you, are bigger than that. So that's what we have to do. Speaking of platforms, you can find my stuff at Budget Guns and Gear Reviews here on YouTube, Budget Guns and Gear on GunStreamer, GunTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and Instagram. I do a show every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern called The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second, here on my YouTube channel, and simulcast over on GunChannels. So check that out. Oh, also you can find me at www.budgetgunsandgear.com.
Yeah, go check Budget out. Like I said, Friday night, The Right of the People is one of my favorite shows out there. Love that show. I love what you're doing with it. I try to be on when I can, and it's always fun. If I'm not on, I'm always listening. So thanks for doing what you're doing, Mike. I really appreciate it. And hopefully to see you NRA next month, correct?
Oh, you know it. I will definitely be there at the NRA show.
That's right. Real quick, Calaveras out there says that a friend of his received a cease and desist order from Feinstein's office for all the letters he sent her. That's awesome. If you can get a cease and desist order from your senator because they're sick and tired of your letters, you know that you struck a chord. Fantastic. We should all strive for that. I love that. Now, G, you had a 2A workshop you've got on Tuesdays and Saturdays. You've also got Daily Gun Show. You got everything going on in your life right now. Do you have anything you want to talk about from the show? If not, please go ahead and plug what you want to plug right now.
Okay. I'd like to plug individual freedom, the absence of restraint on our ability to think and act for ourselves. Being free from government oppression and regulation only has one meaning: individual freedom. And it automatically carries with it individual responsibility, in this case, our participation.
Well said. Well said. Clover, what say you, my little green friend?
I say get out there, turn the cameras on, turn the microphones on, utilize all of the social media platforms at your disposal to educate, to enlighten. We've got a lot of power online, and it's seldom taken advantage of. It's taken advantage of by a few, but we're not up here doing things that anybody else can't do.
That's right. I promise you I'm not special.
Yeah, I can guarantee it. I mean, it certainly, I mean, sometimes we feel that way. That happens, of course, because the great followers, viewers, whatever that we have. But at the end of the day, let's call a spade. Let's be honest. We're not anything special. So you can be the next big thing on the Facebooks or the Instagrams or the GunStreamers or wherever. And more importantly, we talk about it all the time. You may only reach one person, but that one person you reach may reach 1 million. after that. So G-Webs talks about that one drop, no one drop being responsible for the flood or whatever. So yeah, get out there and mix things up, but do it in a, I urge you to do it in a positive, enlightening, educational way, rather than demonization and trying to shame somebody into something. With society today, I just don't think that's going to work. And more importantly, get out in your community and volunteer, and just be that guy in the community that everybody knows, and keep your Second Amendment stance, and keep all your other moral stances and everything that align with just who we are as a community, and let your community know that you're that type of person. You're that type of a go-to person. When things get tough, they can look to you. So that's it.
Wow, that was deep. I feel like a changed man. No, it's good stuff, and it really is being positive. I think that there's a way to be aggressive without being militant. So I think that a positive, aggressive message is something we need to worry about. Now, Buck's out there, gun loving Grandpa Stanley, and I want to bring this up before we get off. He's got something really cool. Next Tuesday at his local gun shop, there's going to be an attorney from the U.S. Law Shield at the gun shop, and Buck is going to be setting up an interview and talking with this attorney about carry laws and different things, but from U.S. Law Shield, which I think is going to be an amazing video. But what he's saying, I'm going to go ahead and put his email out there. It's gunlovinggrandpastanley at gmail.com. You can see his name out there, gunlovinggrandpastanley at gmail.com. And he's saying if anybody out there has questions that he would like for him to ask this attorney from U.S. Law Shield, go ahead by next Tuesday and send him an email, gunlovinggrandpastanley at gmail.com. He is going to be talking and interviewing an attorney from U.S. Law Shield. So send those questions to Buck. I cannot wait to see that video. That's going to be a great one. As for me, thank you again for everyone that watches. Thank you for everyone that supports, especially my patrons. I love you guys. Thank you for all that you do for the channel. For you guys that are new to the channel, you found this podcast or this video or any other videos, welcome to the dark side. I appreciate you. If you're out there and you are wanting a different type of review, I just had another review drop today over at gearreport.com. It's gear-report.com, and I'll put it out there in the chat, but it's gear-report.com, and I have the review of the PK380 on there. So I know Clover's doing some work with them, and I think Budget's even getting into the mix and doing some reviews for Gear Report. Great people. Yep. Go check out gearreport.com. You'll see, like myself, Budget. You've got Clover. Mike might be getting involved. Hell, I think he talks to Jeff all the time. So all of us are friendly and have a great relationship with Gear Report. But if you're looking for some really good reviews on not just firearms, hunting, outdoors.
My problem is I'm too big a channel, and I feel like bigger channels should backpedal gear reviews because of the political situation. I don't want people to be held from the industry.
I wish I had the problem of being too big to be able to pick my battles, but one day I'll be as big as you are. Not literally, because you're a monster of a man and I am a dwarf of a man, but maybe I'll be as big in the hemisphere of internets as you know.
Just a couple of years, we're just going to program our brains into robots.
That's true. That is true. Yeah. I don't even want to think about that. That's just depressing right there. Oh, I can't say depressing online because now I might be a red flag. So, gosh, I shouldn't have said that. I should have said that. Anyways, guys, I'm going to go down a lot of rabbit holes here. I've had a great discussion tonight. Let's continue the discussion. And the best way for you to continue this discussion is to leave comments. We can continue to have the discussion that way. Or even better, like Clover said, it's real simple. Turn the camera on, turn the mic on, do your own thing. Be part of the solution. Get out there and practice. Get out there and train. Be more proficient with your firearm. Hell, take someone new to the range. Maybe that's a way to convince them. We all remember what it was like the first time we pull a trigger, the adrenaline rush and the oh, hell yeah moment. Take someone out to the range. Make sure they're doing safe. They know that we're responsible and they're having a good time. That right there, my friends, is the best way to turn and change minds. Take them to the range, invite them to a nice, pleasant day at the range, turn the cameras on and be part of the solution. And like I said, train hard, train often, be a warrior, all that good stuff. Thank you to everyone on the panel. I apologize once again for not getting you your time. This was a little bit of a rant session for me. Go check out Night Strike right now. He's on Hit or Miss. And later on, you've got Sandhill Shooter with 2A Tuesday, and then finish the night off, as always, at midnight Eastern with the Daily Gun Show. It's a great night of entertainment and gun news and whatever you want to call it. We're here to help, but we're always looking for people to join the fight. So we shall see you next week at Tuesday at 7 Central for the next edition of Tactical Tuesday. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Semper Fi.